hearing your joke, I think you should keep your day job. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. I have to tell my one little Indiana story, however. Some 17 years ago when I was leaving California, talking to my dad, who probably never went further west than Pittsburgh. And I'm on the West Coast, and I'm talking to him, I'm talking about making this move to Wisconsin. He forgot all about that, and he said to me, "Well, have you moved to Indiana yet?" I said, "Well, no, Dad, no, we haven't moved yet. I'm calling you from California." I said, "But incidentally, we're not going to Indiana. We're going to Wisconsin." And he said, "What's the difference?" I spent 2 summers down here, so if he were alive, I could tell him what the difference is. But I am delighted to be here. I'm going to ask your indulgence. I have this PowerPoint thingy because you want me to have it. I would much rather not have it. But, you know, I'm from the old school where you go to one of these things and people had handouts. Okay, and so someone would say, "Well, how was it taught?" "Oh, it was great. She had great handouts." And somewhere in someone's garage, there are stacks and stacks of handouts. Great handouts. So now, however, when you go to one of these things, people ask, "Well, how was it?" And they say, "Oh, it was great. She had great PowerPoint." So I've got a PowerPoint because you want me to have a PowerPoint. But it is what I would call an MTV version of PowerPoint. You guys watch MTV? Okay, it's a young crowd. Let's talk to some of the old school folks here. I'm not an MTV fan, but I have a person living in my house who, although the law says is an adult, I would say is an adolescent. She is a university student, but my rule for adulthood is that you pay your own bills. And since I pay all the bills, she's an adolescent. But and she likes all kinds of music, and it turns out that, you know, I like a lot of the music too. I'm surprised at how much of the music I actually like. I mean, you had a tough night, you had a lot of stuff to do, you get in the car and you put the little iPod or CD, whatever you got, and music. And you know, it gets your day going, you know. It ain't all gospel. Sometimes you just need, you know, you need to wave your hands in the air like you just don't care. I mean, so I do like a lot of the music. However, I've come home and tried to bond with my adolescent. And so we sit there watching MTV where they literally show you the music, right? But I am more likely than not to say something like, "Is this what this song is about?" You know, but I have one of those smart ones. I don't, you know, she'll say something, "Oh, mother, it's symbolism." So as we go through this, it's symbolism. Okay? The pictures and the words, you know, the beat and the pictures don't always go together. You just stay with the beat. Okay. Well, in my American Educational Research Association presidential address in San Francisco in April of 2006, I challenged my colleagues in education research to reconceptualize this notion of the achievement gap and to begin to think about what I call the incredible education debt that we as a nation have accumulated. So rather than focusing on telling people to catch up, we have to think about how we will begin to pay down this mountain of debt that we have amassed at the expense of entire groups of people and their subsequent generations. Looking at our current educational problems as an achievement gap causes us to look to the year-to-year progress on various standardized test measures and allows us to conclude that the problem lies solely in the realm of scholastic disparity. Specifically, the problem that I have with constructing our current concern as an achievement gap is both substantive and semantic. So let me start first with the semantic issue. When we speak of an achievement gap, and believe me, everybody is speaking of it, regardless of their political ideology. That right there is a signal something ain't right. Okay. If they all agree and this thing is happening, we need to think about that. But when we speak of an achievement gap, we are suggesting that some groups are doing just fine, and that we have to find a way to get the groups that are not doing fine to catch up with them. This presents two problems for us. First of all, academic performance is not static. Those students who are achieving at acceptable levels are not just sitting and waiting for those who are lagging to catch up with them. Thus, the primary premise of closing the gap rests on the notion of slow performance at the top, while there is simultaneous increased performance at the lower levels. Given the increased pressure to achieve via standardized testing, it is unlikely that high-performing students can be expected to just stand still. The long-term trends from the National Center for Educational Statistics indicate that all students' scores are improving. For example, in 1971, white 9-year-olds' average scale scores in literacy was 214, while black 9-year-olds' average scale score in the same test was 170. In 2004, the average scale score for white 9-year-olds was 226, so they've continued to improve. While for blacks, it was 200. They continue to improve. So everybody's moving. In the case of Latino students, the difference between them and white students was 217 and 183 in 1975, and I give you that date because they weren't tested as a separate group before that time. So it's sort of interesting the way in which we've made these distinctions. These gaps are relatively stable and remarkably similar at ages 13 and 17, with the largest gap showing up among 17-year-olds, both black and Latino. So the longer the kids stay in school, the greater the gaps get. But everybody is, quote, improving. Everybody's scores are getting better. The one curious narrowing of the gap appears in 1988. And this narrowing appears across all groups and at each age level. Now, I don't know why it's narrowed. I've been reading a lot of stuff trying to figure out, but I will tell you from a sort of place of conjecture that this is the final year of the Reagan presidency, and we have no significant education legislation passed. Statisticians don't like me to say that, because that's all about a correlation. That is not causation. But I just find it kind of interesting. You know, when people stop meddling in your business, you seem to be able to go about your business. What we do have during this time is a rhetorical legacy coming out of the Commission on Excellence in Education, The Nation at Risk, the report that catapulted education to the nation's forefront consciousness, of their consciousness, and created enough attention